In the early 1700s, India was one of the richest and most productive regions in the world. It was a global center for textiles, spices, agriculture, and metalworking. Cotton fabrics produced in India were considered luxury goods in Europe, and Indian steel and spices shaped global trade. According to historians, during this period, India accounted for approximately 25% of the world's economy. That meant it held economic power comparable to the global share of the United States or China today. But this wealth was not a threat to Britain. It was an opportunity to be exploited. Everything began with the East India Company. Founded in 1600, this company was, on paper, a trading organization. Over time, however, it transformed into a power with its own army, waging wars, collecting taxes, and making laws. For the first time in history, a private company took control of an entire country. After the Battle of Plassey in 1757, the British gained real power in India. From that point on, the goal was no longer trade, but maximum profit. The first major move was this: to destroy India's productive economy. For centuries, India had produced its own textiles and goods. This was a major problem for British industry because India was self-sufficient. Britain therefore imposed heavy taxes on Indian textiles. At the same time, textiles produced in British factories were brought into India almost tax-free. The result was inevitable. Local weavers went bankrupt. Workshops shut down. Millions of people lost their jobs. India was no longer a producing nation, but a colony that supplied raw materials. The second phase was quieter but far more destructive: the tax system. The British administration imposed extremely heavy taxes on the Indian population. No matter how much farmers produced, they were required to pay these taxes. Even when harvests were poor, taxes were not reduced. These taxes were not used for schools, hospitals, or infrastructure in India. The collected money was transferred directly to Britain. Historians refer to this process as wealth drain. In other words, the value produced in India financed Britain's Industrial Revolution. Factories in Manchester and banks in London grew using the taxes paid by the Indian people. The third and darkest chapter was famine. During the 1800s, India experienced repeated major famines. In some periods, millions of people lost their lives. But the tragic reality was this: even during these famines, the British continued to export grain from India. While people were dying of starvation, food was shipped by boat to other countries. The British administration described this as a free market, but the result was mass death. India was also a resource for the British Army. Millions of Indian soldiers were used in Britain's wars, yet their own country was not free. In 1947, Britain withdrew from India, but it did not leave behind a strong economy. Instead, it left poverty, division, and deep trauma. Once one of the richest regions in the world, India became one of the poorest countries after colonial rule. Today, many historians argue that Britain extracted trillions of dollars worth of wealth from India. This story shows us one thing: a country can be conquered not only by weapons, but also through trade, taxation, and systems.